All right, friends, welcome. It is the second day of week 11. We've got quite a heavy day today, so we're just going to jump right on in. What we did last week is we started building sort of our belt prep exam. And so really what I want to focus on, I built a couple things for us to move ahead, but this whole application, this whole project is really to prepare you. So I don't want to jump too far ahead. I don't want to like really scale it up. The thing that I want to talk today is just really left joining, making sure you guys can understand or joining really how to do that, how to grasp that. So we will build that out. But I just wanted you to really, I want to make sure that we are good to go, that we all have an understanding of what exactly is happening and how we can kind of build this out as much as we need to. Cool. Great. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that we're all up to speed on what we did. We jumped in. Oh, before I guess before I get started real fast, make sure that you guys are doing your discussion question and your core assignments for this week. So please make sure that you guys are doing those. Let me pull it up real fast. Cool. This week we've got, I don't like that it's huge. We're in week 11, which is crazy to me. But you got Ninja's CRUD. So Dojo's and Ninja's CRUD. If you were in here for office hour, we were actually doing CRUD part 2. But that's what you got this week. Like I said, next week is a little bit easier. All we're doing is validations. We're going to continue with what we're doing today, continue to build out our application, and then we're doing some validations, which is fun. Fairly simple, fairly easy, nothing too crazy there. Then we build in login and registration. That's where we're going to start learning about hashing passwords. And then we have our belt exam review. So this will be any pieces that I want to make sure you guys remember and understand. I also am pretty liberal with knowledge in the sense of like to share it when it comes to exams. So that way you guys are not at all worried about anything, right? None of this. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm not trying to confuse you. So I will be blunt on like, make sure you know how to do X, Y, or Z. And then the belt exam will open up. So that's coming up quick. We just have really 3 more weeks of class. And then we are, so 1 week, 2 weeks, belt review, and then the belt opens. So 3 more weeks, we're almost there. Cool. But yeah, what we're going to do today is go through what we built already. I built some stuff on my own, and then we're going to build out some even more. We'll focus and do some SQL stuff just to make sure that we can understand like a left join and how we're joining tables together and how that works. And then we will build that out in code as well. So quite a bit. What we did last week, just as a sort of recap, not last week, sorry, on Monday. Oh my gosh. Last class is we took our Flask application and we modularized it, right? We built it up or broke it up into small pieces so that way it's easier for us to navigate, easier for us to do and mold together. And so some of the big things that we did is we took that monolithic server.py file, broke it up into a bunch of different pieces. Now we still have a server.py, but we broke it up into a bunch of different pieces where we have a config folder that's got our MySQL connection here. Okay, nothing new on this file other than that it lives within this config. We created a folder called our belt app that lives on the same pathway as our server PY. Obviously, this class overview is just a markdown file for us, but they live on the same path. And then within that, you've got 4 folders. Well, technically, I have 5, but you've got your config folder that's going to hold your MySQL connection file. What that does is that, again, connects us to our database. We've got then our templates, something that you guys know that holds our HTML pages. That's fine. Static is where we would have, if we're going to have any sort of JavaScript or if we're going to have any sort of CSS, this is where those files would go. What I will tell you is I do not care about you having custom CSS, and you definitely don't have to have custom JavaScript. That is not a requirement for the exam. That is not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is, do you know the functionality? Can you create a server? Can you take data and or a request from the front end, send it to your back end? Can your back end then decide what to do, whether you need to ping the database or not? And then once you get that information, or you retrieve that information, if you have to, then you give it back to your user in a way that is digestible. That is what I care about. If you can use Bootstrap, that is as sufficient as you need to make your forms not look terrible. You do not have to have custom CSS. You definitely do not need to touch JavaScript. If you can, great. I would say don't worry about it. There's nothing JavaScript-y in the exam anyway, so if you do need JavaScript, that's just on you. But the only thing I would ask is, again, I don't really care about coloring and styling, as long as if you create a form, don't like have the form going across the same, on the same row, and it just looked terrible. Like either put some BR tags, or really you should format it, or just use Bootstrap, something like that, to make it look nice. But that's all you really have to do. Then the other big thing is we took our all our sort of functionality from our server PY file, and we put it in this folder called controllers. Now, each table that we have is going to have its own controller file. The way we typically do that, and this is just easy because you can know, okay, if it's plural, that's my controller. If it's singular, that's my model. And then what that does is it allows us to see the functionality, right? When we hit a route, what is the return response, or what do we want it to do, right? When our server makes a request, it's going to come here and say, okay, I have this request at this specific route. What do you want me to do? And then we can do that. The second thing is we have built this idea, or built this file called models. And so what we do is, we have this folder called models, then we put a model file in each of them, or within it. And this looks like what you would expect. We have a class of whatever our model is. We have our dunder init. We have our IDs. We have all of our information here. And then we have all of our class methods. Now, again, we just have, should be familiar to you guys. Understanding class methods, we have a get all, get one, save, which is sort of like our create, update, and delete. So we have all of those built. I built this. We did not do this in class. I built this on my own, but this is all things that we've already talked about. So the creating, reading, updating, and deleting. So therefore, I thought it was okay to kind of walk through and do on my own, not something to sort of redo the wheel if you need. Go ahead, Graylin. Yeah.
So for on the left where it says belt exam, config, so that's the folder. Now the config, the models, are those just folder names, or are those file types?
Those are folder names. Yeah, great question.
Okay.
These are folder names.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so these are our folder names. And so one thing that is different is when we are dealing with our folders, because things have changed, we also have this init py. And this is where we say from Flask, import Flask. And then we say app equals Flask dunder name. So we took this from our server py and put this in our dunder init py file. And then we have our secret key for session, if we want to use session. And then all we do in our server is we say from belt exam app. So from this file right here, this folder, import app. Now, because whenever we call belt exam app, here's the initializer, it's importing this right here. So all of that used to live in our server py, all this. Now, all we do is we say, we import it, and we still have our if name, dunder name, app run.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was a lot. We did a lot last Monday. So The other thing we did is if we want to have access to certain things, so here, for us to be able to have access to controllers for my server, to be able to know what routes I've got, then I go in and get my controllers. And so this is what allows us to handle our routing. And so we put that within my server PY, but also if I'm dealing with, I'm calling user, dot get one. I'm doing all that. So I need to import that. So we import user from, or from user, import user. That's coming from this file right here. And I'm importing this class. And then vice versa, we have to, if you remember back when we had just our model page, we had to bring in our MySQL connection so we could use the method of connect to MySQL. We bring that in. Now, I think we're going to test and see ChatGPT put the belt exam.config. I don't know that you need to have that. I think you could just do config.mysql connection, but we're going to test and see which one, if that works or not. Cool. Believe that is it. Let's just check it and see if it runs, and then we can kind of handle that. Cool. So what we need to do, we have an index.html that has nothing. We'll have an H1 that this is running. Cool. Let's see. Now, normally what I would say is whenever you're building out the functionality, always test prior. One thing for those that weren't in class on Monday, all of this stuff can come pre-built before the exam. You're not going to know what models you need. I can guarantee you're going to need a user model, and you will have to have a login and registration, and you can come with that pre-built. That's okay. I'm not expecting you to build that during the exam. The only thing to note is like you could build out, belt exam. You could build it just like this. You have your server PY, everything settled. You have your config file. That's not going to change. You're not really going to know your controllers because you're not going to know what you're doing. You might be able to have like a users because you're going to have a login and registration and then a user PY. The only thing to note is in your user, you might have this as your basis where you've got, an ID, a first name, a last name, email, password, created at, updated at. There might be an additional field of maybe age or, height or something, right? To where if you come with this pre-built, that's okay. I'm fine with that. Just know that you're going to have to go through and be aware of what you've pre-built, because know that you're going to have to go through. And if I added in age, you would then need to say like self.age, right? And then you're going to go and have to do that wherever you have that information. Here, you're going to have age. On your update, you're going to have age. So just be aware of that. That's a-okay if you come with that pre-built. But, you can kind of, I would say come with something pre-built, but don't just think out of the box. It's going to be a-okay. But typically these ones you're going to be just fine with. Cool. So I'm just going to try it. My main focus today is I want us to be able to do a join and join in some data, but we don't have any data yet. So I'm going to pip env shell into this. So I'm going to say Python server.py and see if I get an error or if it gets up and running. Yep, no module user. So we got an error. So let's see.
You need an S on the end of that? Users.
Well, I'm trying to get this model. I think it might be. Let's check. Oh. Perfect. Let's try this again. Let's go. Anybody see my error? I went too long building stuff. This is the idea of code a little, test a lot. I did not do that. So therefore now I'm kind of paying for it, to be honest. Let's see.
You have from models.user import and then capital U and user.
Yeah, so my class is called user with a capital U. Let's see. So it should have just been from user, import user.
Or maybe we use from models import user.
No module
Models.
user, but I'm looking. Yeah, I'm looking at. Let's see.
You maybe have to go through the app folder, then the models folder.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm not sure what it otherwise might be,
I
honestly.
think, yeah, I think it's built. That's what ChatGPT had too. Dot models, dot user. Let's see. Import user.
I think there's also an underscore app in there.
Yep, you're right. Thank you, Liam. Yep. Okay. So that was it. That's good. Now let's see. App route slash user. Oh. Let's call this user. Okay. Okay, this is running. Cool. So we know that it's running. That's good. Now let's go ahead and build out some of this stuff, and then I will bring this over whenever we build it out. I want to create sort of a user, like I need to be able to create a user, and I need to be able to create a I need to be able to create a movie, right? So what I want to do is I'm going to have this index.html. I'm going to get rid of a lot of this stuff. Cool. So I'm actually going to get rid of this is running, and I'm going to put a container. Again, that is a Bootstrap thing that I don't have. So let me bring that in. You just go to bootstrap.com. You get the link. And just put it up there. Now we can use Bootstrap. Okay. So I use .container. And then what I want is I'm going to maybe have an H1 that says, welcome to our movie creator application. And then what I can do, I can say something like, maybe I want to, should I have, let's build this out together. Should I be able to create a user and a movie on the same page? Should we put a button that then sends us to another, like create user page? What do you guys think? What would be the best thing for like a user experience?
A button.
Making button.
I think so too, right? So let's go ahead and let's do that. let's do, maybe we'll just do kind of a, put this in a row. And so we'll have that. Oh, hotkeys on a Windows is different. Cool. So then we can just actually have an A tag. It's gonna be a link. And we want to go to, let's go to slash user. And let's check our controllers and see what do we have so far. I have slash users slash create. And what that does is that actually creates it. So I don't have that yet. Maybe I could say user underscore form. That makes more sense. So we come here and we say, okay, this is going to take me to my user underscore form. And we'll just say create new user. And then maybe we've got a pipe. It says create new movie. I like that. So if we refresh, this is what it looks like right now. This looks awful, but that's okay. We can make it look a little bit different here in a bit. You know, create that as like an H4. This maybe is so it's not so gross. Okay. So when they click this, it's gonna go where? Kind of, I want you guys to walk me through, help me understand whenever this button is clicked, what's my computer then gonna do? Like how does the flow of my form or how does the flow of my application work? When this is clicked, create new user, what happens? Where's it gonna go look at?
Go to the
It's gonna
controller.
redirect us to the link, right?
Well, it's gonna go to my controller. I think I heard that.
Controller.
Yeah, it redirects and finds that link. And so
Mhm.
what it's gonna do is it's gonna come and it's say, are you user underscore form? You're not, right? Okay, are you user underscore form? Okay, you are. Great. I've got a request. What do you want me to give back to my user? And we say, okay, well, we have this method of user. I'm gonna say user form just because that makes more sense. Doesn't really matter. But what I want to basically have an HTML that has this form. So maybe I'm going to call this user underscore form HTML, and that's what they're going to give it back. It's going to say, okay, great. So let's go ahead and make that. Let's go into my templates and say user underscore form dot HTML. Come here. Put in Bootstrap. Come here and let's go ahead and create that form. So I'm going to say dot container. Container. And then I'm just going to have a form that says we're going to have a form method of post. And then we'll do column. So class equals call medium. And how many columns are there in Bootstrap again?
12.
12, exactly. So if I wanted, let's say half of that, I would just put 6. Say, okay, I only want to take up half the screen. Cool. Make sure a method is post. You have to have that. And then we'll handle this in a second. Actually, we have that information, right? We know that whenever we say user create, that's where it goes. So I just have to take that. Let me take that. I'll copy and paste. Perfect. Cool. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to have yep, perfect. ChatGPT knows it well. Not going to do this yet. Great. Why is it not liking that? Oh,
Are you missing a single quotation around
I was-
user for?
I was missing a single bracket. ChatGPT did not put a bracket there for me. Cool. Oh, I see what you're saying. Perfect. Okay. So this is our form. Nothing we haven't done before. Again, I'm using Bootstrap, so therefore this form control makes it pop up there. Form control, form control, form control. Now, what is the really important attribute in my input elements? Anybody remember? And why is it important? I want to
Would
make
it be
sure
its name?
Yeah,
Name.
exactly, Liam. It's your name. It's the name, right? And why is that important?
Well, that's what's going to carry the data over to the other parts of our application.
Exactly. This portion right here, when we have this form, request.form, it's going to take that specific information and it's going to, or it's going to take whatever we typed and it's going to kind of package it up and send it over with our request. Now, if here we put F name instead of first name, right? But here we said first name, then it's not going to know. It's going to say there's not a key of first name there. So I have no idea what that value is, right? So one thing I always say is, so these have to match this, has got to match this. However, this does not have to match this. Whatever on the left, you could call this unicorn, cupcake, rainbows, and sprinkles. You could. That'd be a terrible naming convention. It wouldn't be helpful for anybody, but you could do that. What I always suggest to students is keep everything uniform. If you're going to call it first name in your model, keep that throughout, whether it's in your form or in your controller or wherever you do that, just keep it the same because it's not going to be confusing. If you have it as different versions, it's going to get very confusing and it's just going to kind of slow you down. Cool. So once this form is submitted, what it does is, what does it do once it's submitted? Where does it take that information?
Would it take it to the class method next?
Not quite the class method yet. I click this button. What is the flow of my computer? And this is the reason I'm really emphasizing this is going to be how you problem solve and really learn how to debug. So if you can
Is it
understand the
gonna
flow.
Take us to the controller where you
Yeah.
can create.
Yeah, it's going to take exactly, Tenzin. It's going to take us to our controller and it's going to look specifically for this route, right? So we're going to go to our controller. It's going to say, are you users slash or user slash create? You're not. Let me make sure I didn't say user. Yep. Cool. Are you user slash create? You're not. Are you user slash create? You are. And also equally important, because this is a post method, we must make sure that we put methods equals post here. If we don't, then it's going to get an error that says, hey, you have a request type that's not allowed. Basically, you're doing a GET request, or sorry, this handles only GET requests because by default, it's just saying methods is GET. That's the default HTTP method. So if you're making a post request, it's going to say, I can't do that. I don't know what to do with data. But because we said post, we are good to go. Then we're running this function here. We extract the data from our form. Extract the data from our form. And then what we do is we say user.save. Liam, this is where it's now going to call my class. So it's going to go to my class and it's going to say, okay, user dot, and it's going to say, are you dot save? Nope. Are you dot save? Nope. Are you dot save? Yes. Cool. What do you want me to do? Right? I have this data. I have this information for you. And it says, cool, go ahead and give me that data. Then it runs this query, or it sets up this query. Sorry, it hasn't run it yet. We say insert into users. I'm creating. So this is our query. We're inserting into this table. The columns that I'm inserting into are first name, last name, email, password. And the values for those is first name, last name, email, password. Now, we did not have to do any sort of created at or updated at. Can anybody remember why we didn't have to do that?
because
We
you
did that
put
in the
it here.
database. Oh, my bad.
You're good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In our database, we had a default expression that said current timestamp and the current timestamp on update, current timestamp. So if you do not do that, you have to pass in your created at and updated at here as well. And then you would pass in, now. That's what you'd pass in if you don't want to do that default expression. But I say just do it. It's easy. It's a one and done thing. So that sets up my query, creates just a variable with that value. Then we run our connect to MySQL. So we have to make sure that this is brought in up top. Where we say belt exam app. That's our application .config. So go to that folder. And then within that folder, there's a file called MySQL connection. And then from there is something called connect to MySQL that I want you to bring in and allow me to use. So it says, okay, great. It goes, it has that information. And so whenever we do save, we run that connect to MySQL, we give the database that we're connecting to. The query, we're running QueryDB. Again, that comes from here. Then we are passing the data. That data comes from this right here, because we're passing it in. And then once that's done, when we say return, that means it's just going to, it's going to run that and then it's going to print and it's going to do all that information. So once that's done, it comes here. And then what do we never do on a post request?
Render template.
Yeah, we never render template on a post request, right? So because of that, we redirect. So we can do a redirect back to user, but we don't have a /user. So maybe we'll just go back to /. Cool. And that'll take us back to our HTML page. Everything is still working. Let's go check it out. I click on create new user. We get our form to Will Calhoun, w@c.com. Password, create user. Cool. Now, if I'm going to go to my actual database, refresh. Within my users, oops. I want to select all from users. I run that. Cool. And I see that it saved. Now, this is saving in plain text. This was my password, I would encourage, especially when you guys are testing, just do something easy like this, like w@c.com and then password. I know sometimes people and students always write a whole bunch of, really long emails and all that stuff, and it gets confusing. We're going to learn how to hash this later. This is going to be in 2 weeks. We're going to learn how to hash that, but we're able to save information in my database. Now, let's go ahead and do the same thing for a movie. Let's go ahead and create a movie. We've handled our user form. Let's get rid of that. In my HTML, I now have a movie form. So let's go and build that out. I'm just going to delete cancel my users for now. I'm going to go to my controller. I have nothing built from my controller. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have here. What do I need app there? Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay. Cool. So that's sort of the boilerplate. That way I can use my render template, redirect, request, and session. We're going to do that. So now what I want to do is let's go ahead and create a route that was that movie form. So I'm gonna say app.route. And then I'm gonna say /movie_form. Cool. All movie form is going to do is gonna give me a template for movie form. Right? It's gonna give me a template for movie form. Cool. So let's go ahead and build that out. Go to my templates. I'm gonna say movie_form.html. And honestly, it's gonna look exactly the same. Well, not exactly the same, but it's gonna look extremely similar to this. So really what I could do is just kind of take all of this. Since I know that it's already kind of styled the way that I want, the only thing I'll need to do is bring in Bootstrap. Perfect. Great. But instead of doing that, we're going to go to movie/create. And then I will need to kind of change everything here, right? So instead of first name, I'm going to say title. And then here, if you hold the Alt button, or I can't remember what it's called on the Mac, but if you hold that and then you double click, it's going to allow you to pick multiple things at once. So for here, I can just say title and it'll change all of them at once. So I don't have to keep writing the word title. Let's do genre. Okay. And then let's do get director. Okay. Now, there's one other thing that we're going to have to do is we are going to have to figure out a way. And right now, I'm going to hard code it just so we can see how we would do like a join. But then there's other ways that we can do it. But right now, I'm going to hard code it because we're not logged in. Usually, what I would do is I would have a login and registration. And so once a user logs in, I would put their ID in session. And so then once I have that information, I can, once I have that information, I can then pull it whenever I want and pass it through. Maybe we should do that whenever we come to this user, just for right now. You say session of user ID. I don't, that's too complicated. Okay. Right now it's okay. What we'll do is we'll actually just create another input that we can put the ID. And we'll put created by. Or sorry, we'll say users ID. Again, this is just sort of a hard-coded thing. Whenever we keep building this out, and we have login and registration, we'll be able to pull that in from right there. We'll have to handle this in a unique way, but it should be a-okay. Okay. Now what we have is we have this form that has all this information. We can say create movie. Perfect. And it goes to movie/create. So let's go ahead and build that. Its method is post, and we are creating our movie. But we don't have a title, release date, all this stuff. We have a title, a genre, a start form genre. We have a director. And then we've got our users. User ID is not session user ID. Request.form user ID. So I just made what potentially could have been a very frustrating error for you guys. I put user ID right here, but here in my form, I put user's ID. Let's come here and see what are our thing. It is user ID. So let's go ahead. And again, we want it all to be succinct and to match. So let's go ahead and make that match. Okay. I'm going to pause there. I just have done a lot. Are there any questions on what we've done so far?
Feeling pretty good about it so far?
Cool. Great. So
Yeah,
let's
just
go.
So the general. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead, Gregory.
Just so the general flow is we're going from the models and then addressing the templates, and then we're going into our controllers, with setting all this stuff up.
Yeah, so the way I think about it when I'm building this is what is the flow of how the computer operates, right? So we created this form, and this form is going to send you to this method. Does this method exist? If it doesn't, let's go ahead and create it. Cool, we created it. Now that we've created it, what it needs is we're running create movie, we're getting our data, that's fine, but it's saying movie.save and it's passing the data. But then I would say, is movie.save, is that a thing yet within my model? Well, it's not. So then once I do that, I'm going to come here. Or actually it is because I forgot that I added all this, but it is, right? I have that built in right there. So that's the way I would think about it is, okay, let's take it from here to here to here, and then, go from there, if that makes sense. Like what is, again, the
Yeah.
flow of data, the flow of how the computer is going to operate. If you can get that down, it makes problem solving a breeze because you go, okay, I know that whenever I click on this, it's supposed to go to this form. And I click, it goes to this form. Great. So I know that that functionality is working. Now, when I click on this button, this form's supposed to go here. Okay. Is it going there? And then I would come, to movies and say, yep, that's right. I would check that route real quick and say, yep, that's right. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Let's do that. That's perfect. Then, then I would say, okay, well, is it getting the information? And I might like print out, data. I might print out certain things. And then I'd make sure that it's not this. And I go, okay, so if it's not this, if everything is working great, let's go here. And then I would go here and I would say, all right, is this working? And I would build that through, right? And just, that's kind of how you problem solve. That's how you debug it, is you're it's a process of elimination, eliminating things and saying, okay, is it this? Nope. Okay, is it this? Nope. Is it this? And then you find a point and you're like, okay, here's the issue. Now maybe why? And that's kind of the next part to figure out.
Okay.
Cool. Cool.
Hey, Will,
Yeah.
I think we are missing with foreign key
Yeah.
in movie.
Yep. Yep. We will be needing to add that in. So Tenzin, where would I add that?
Yeah,
know
and
you've-
after director.
Yeah, right here, right?
Yeah, user ID.
user ID. And then
And
it,
behind that, you just
yeah. And I put my percentage sign. Yep, just like that. So this is my foreign key. This is what's going to connect the two. And so let's go ahead and see if we can save our movie. Let's see if this works. Again, when we go to, let's kind of walk the flow back again. Really, when I'm on this index.html, I click on this A tag. When I click on this A tag, it goes to my movie form. So it's going to go here. And it's going to say, is there a movie form? There is. Okay, what do you want me to do? I have a request for you. It says, okay, render this template, movie form HTML. Takes it, gives it back to my user. My user sees this form. Then our user fills this out. And then they press this submit button. Then it takes that data, packages it up in a request, and it takes it to this route right here via the HTTP method. You sort of think about that as like the vehicle, all right? The vehicle is a post method, and it takes it to this route. So it says, okay, great. It comes back to here, and it finds that route. Make sure that the method that it allows that kind of vehicle, right? It does, because we said post. Now, if this was lowercase, it would still work. That's fine. But then it says, cool. Yep, I verified. We're good to go. What do you want me to do? And it says, okay, here's this method. It creates this variable of data with the request.form information that we are passing it. Then once it's done creating that data, and this happens obviously in like microseconds, is it goes to movie.save. So it's like, movie, I know that's here. Let me find the method that's .save and run that. So it finds this. It must have data. It runs this insert into, puts it into my DB, gives my query my data. Then it says, okay, I've done that. What do you want me to do? Or it returns whatever this returns. And you say, cool, let's redirect back to this index.html. So let's see if this works. So let's refresh. We know we have a user. So in this case, I've got, let's say Walter Mitty. It's my favorite movie. Adventure. Ben Stiller. And only one person is there, so let's do one. Okay. Now I want to come test here. Yep, this is green. It seems like everything is fine. Let's go ahead and go to my MySQL Workbench. And it's saying select all from users. Let's say select all from movies. Run this. And we get Walter Mitty, Adventure, Ben Stiller, created it, updated it, and my user ID. So my foreign key. Awesome. That's exactly what we wanted. Can somebody give me another movie that they love?
I'll give you the same one from last time. Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Okay. Genre. I can't remember what we decided
Action
on last.
comedy.
Action comedy. And then director.
Edgar Wright.
Edgar
WRIGHT.
Wright. And then we'll say that again, I created this. Great. If I go check this and I run it again, you now see the second one. Now I want to create a new user. And then I want to create a movie, for that, for that user as well. So anybody else have another movie? Oh, I see quite a few. Hangover 2. Hangover 2. Genre, I would say that's a comedy. Do you know who the director was, Jordan?
Oh man, honestly, I forgot.
Okay. I guess I could just do this.
Todd Phillips. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Todd Phillips. The brilliant Todd Phillips. And then I'm going to say 2. Perfect. So let's go back to MySQL. Great. Cool. So we see that we've got select all from movies. We've got 2 movies associated with user 1 and then 1 movie associated with user 2. Now, if I wanted to, let's say, and I just wanted to kind of show you guys this. Let's say, for example, I wanted to get all of the, let's say that I was able to, and we won't have time to sort of build this out now. But let's say that I was able to build out a page for each person. What we could do is if I wanted to get all the movies that person has created, that's getting information from 2 tables, right? Where I'm saying, okay, I want to grab this user, and then I want to grab all of the movies that are associated with that user. And for us to do that, that's what we call a join within SQL, where we are joining 2 tables together. And there's a cool little, I actually really like it. I know it's kind of nerdy, but I really like it. When we were dealing with SQL, it kind of shows, here we go. It shows what it looks like when we're doing joins, where we are finding a unique key, our unique identifier, and what we are combining together. And this is what was kind of nerdy, is I kind of like this visualization right here. I've got 2 tables. I've got my customers and I've got my addresses, right? And so what I can do is I can say, great, I want to combine the 2 tables. And where you want to combine them is where the address ID matches the ID of my addresses. And so what this is doing is this is going to combine the 2 to where you will have this address ID, but I will have all my information here. So if we go back to MySQL, I'm going to get rid of this first, and let's run this query. Cool. So what you can see is I select all from users. And then what is happening is I am combining. See if I can make this any bigger. Cool. I'm combining the information where now, instead of just getting my name, it adds where the ID, or sorry, the user ID. So my user's ID matches the movie's user ID. That's what joins the table together. And it can associate, okay, this user, Will Calhoun, is associated with Walter Mitty and Scott Pilgrim versus the World, whereas Charlie Calhoun is associated with The Hangover 2. Now, and here's that sort of combination, right? This user ID matches that, and so on and so forth. And so this is a way that when I run this query, what I can do is I get this information back, and then I can just visualize that how I need, right? If I am showing this on my HTML and maybe I have like, all users and movies, and I run this, I would run this from my users side. So on my users side is where I would have that. Maybe I am, yeah, I could just do like if I had a user page that I wanted just to show all that user's information, I could grab that and show that information. Would you guys want me to, do you guys want me to code that out? I know we're at time. We'll stay here for just a little, maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer. Would you guys prefer me code that out, or you think you have the gist and the understanding of a join there?
Sure, code it.
Code it? Okay.
Yeah,
So
I would
let's-
definitely be interested in seeing that.
Okay, okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and build that out. We'll call it user. Oh, we have that. Oh, we already have this. Okay. This is my user. This is a get one. So within my user, I want to get one with movies is what I'm going to say. So I'm going to say at class method. I'm going to say def get one user with movies. Cool. Cool. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on. And so we'll look at this and we're gonna kind of break this down. So when I run get one with movies, it's gonna take in, or it's a class method, so it always takes in CLS, but it's gonna take in some data. This data is gonna be my ID, right? Because I'm gonna need to basically say, hey, okay, I want this specific user. So what this is doing is my query is saying select all from users, left join movies on users.id, movies underscore user ID. That's exactly what we just did. That's the same exact query here. But if I'm just wanting one specific user, let's say I want to click on Will or Charlie, oops, then I can write where users.id equals the ID that I'm passing in, or the ID that, you know, if I'm clicking on this user, it's their specific ID. Cool. I would get some results. And what I'll want to do is I want to create a class instance of those results, which is normal. That's what we've done, right? And the reason is because if I do this, then I have access to all the methodologies. I showed somebody, I can't remember if it was Tenzin or who it was, but you can create fun little methods to like just do, let's say you had a first name and last name and you wanted a method that just combined the two. You could build that out. And then if you return a class result or class instance of that, then you can run that on your HTML page. It's kind of cool. But what we're also doing is we're saying, cool, I want to create, I'm going to have all this information, all the movies associated. I want to create a array, or sorry, a list of those. And I'm going to iterate through all of those. And I'm going to grab the ID, the title, the genre, director, created at, updated at, and I'm going to append that to my, this says movie date. Yeah, to my, I'm going to append movie data, user.movies. Yep. .append movie data. So I'm going to grab that information. I'm going to add it as an object, as a dictionary to my list. And so once that's done, I return user and I can see all that information. So that's quite a bit. Let's go ahead and build this out. Again, let's build out the functionality of, we have that built. Now I want to, let's see. Let's create a, maybe an all users page. Yeah, that makes sense. All users .html. Let me grab Bootstrap real quick. Oh, don't need a double document. Okay. So maybe this is going to be .container. And then I just want to show, I'll show all of my users. Yeah, this will be fun. I don't want this. Don't worry, I'll explain all of this here in just a bit. So here's my HTML. I know what this is going to look like. What we're doing is we still have this kind of top part. This is acting like a nav bar. It's fine. We don't need this. But what this is this has an H4. This has all users. Then we're creating a table. And the table header is just first name, last name, and email. So that's what we're going to have. And then we're going to have our body, and we are iterating through our users. So we're going to have to get all of our users, right? We're going to have to give that to this HTML. So we know that we're going to need that. And when we do that, we just iterate through each user and we get the first name, last name, email. And then we end my for loop, end my T-body, end my table, and my HTML is done. So let's kind of work backwards, right? We have the HTML. Let's go to the route that's going to call all users. So let's go to my users controller. And then let's see, what do we want to do? We could say app route. Maybe I want to call this user/all. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is I have this method called def all users. I have this variable here called users, user.getAll. Now, again, this is implying that I have a get all method. So let's go ahead and check that. Do we even have that? I have a get one and I do have a get all. Perfect. Everything is good there. Let's go back to that. And then we render template all users HTML. That's great. And then we pass in that users. Now, I actually don't have to put this line here. I could just put users.getAll right here and just say users equals user.getAll. It doesn't really matter if you do one or the other. It's not. I think this is a little bit cleaner because sometimes when you have multiple things you're passing through and you have a little bit longer lines, that gets a little confusing. But let's do this. I'm going to go to my index.html and maybe we're going to have just I want to be able to have, oh, I don't know what just happened there. So I'm going to say dot row, and we're going to have an A tag. That's going to be to users / all. Show all users. Perfect. Make sure it's user/all. Cool. Great. I refresh this. Cool. So now I get show all users. So when I click this, what should happen is it should go to this user/all. So it's going to hop into here. It's going to go to user/all. It's going to run this query, get all. It's going to get that information, save it in this variable of users. So it runs into my user, runs this get all. It gets all my users, and then it creates a class instance of all my users. So this is actually just a list of my users is what I'm returning. Says, okay, great. I will give that list to all users HTML. Renders this, and now because I passed in users, I can say for user and users, and I can iterate through. So when I do this, I should get Will Calhoun email, Charlie Calhoun email. Great. Awesome. Any questions on that?
Looks pretty straightforward. Looks good.
Do
Cool.
we need to create a for loop in our HTML for this?
We did right here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So remember, we had that list that it was given us. So that's what that users is. This is just a list of all my users because that's what is returned. Users. And so once we have that, like you said, We iterate through that using my for loop. And so for each time we have this.
I see. And we can add as many users we want.
Yeah. So if I, let's say, go to create new user, I say Marley. Create user, great. Now when I come to show all users, Marley's now there.
Nice.
Cool. But let's say we wanted to create this user page, right? And show all their movies. So what we could do is let's make this a hyperlink. So should we make this a hyperlink or should we have another another column that says like actions and then we could do, yeah, let's do a column that says actions. We'll have a button for view, a button for edit, and a button for delete. And then we can
Yes.
build that out. Cool. That makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to do a TH for actions. And then I want to have a, yep. Perfect. Well, this is a tag, so it's not necessarily a button. But we got show, edit, delete. And so if we look, let's kind of walk through what happened. We created a TD, and then we just did an A tag. And what this is doing is this is saying, okay, if I want to go to user/user ID. So this is really going to be important when we're kind of going through and seeing users and being able to pass in values in my routes. This is what these are kind of the things you're going to be doing. So we're assuming that we have a method called user slash some sort of ID that we're calling show here. That's just what's visualizing. And that's gonna, for us, that's gonna take us to some sort of method to actually show stuff. We have another one called user ID edit, and then user ID delete, right? And so all three are following the same path of user slash and then sort of the action you're doing. And if we're doing edit or delete, then we click on those buttons and that's where it takes us. And if we hover over, you can see on the bottom left, it's taking us to user/1, user/2, and user/3. Very bottom left. And the same thing, user/1/edit to delete. Cool. So we know that works. Great. So if I wanted to visualize this, let's actually work on this one right here. So we go to my users. And what it said was user/ and then some integer, right? So let's see if I actually already created this. I did. Where we have this route that is user/ int ID. Cool. Where we are getting our, it's just calling show, pass in this ID that comes from my route. So it's getting that information. We bundle it up within a dictionary called data, with a key of ID and its value is ID. Now here I'm calling get one data. And this would just get me all my user information, but that's not what we're wanting to show, right? We're wanting to show all the information, including my movie stuff. So what I could do is I could go to my user. Now I said get one user with movies. Again, all I need is my ID. So what I can say is, instead of user.getOne, I can say get one with movies. That's going to run my query, get me all my information. And then we're going to render template show. I don't even have a show.html. I'm going to call this one user. User.html, and then it's going to pass me that information so I can visualize that on my actual HTML page by saying user. Now, before we do that, I want to just print the results just so we can see it and so we can see sort of what we're getting back here. All that stuff's happening, that's fine, but I just want to print results. So because we'll get an error if we don't have this one user, one underscore user. HTML. Let's grab Bootstrap. On my other computer, I have a hotkey. Oop. Okay. So that's fine. I'm just gonna put an H1. I'll put a dot container with just an H1 that says in user profile. Just because I want to show you what results is going to look like. Cool. So we come back here. We make sure that this is running. Still running, still crushing it. So I refresh this. I'm going to go to show. Cool. So we see our end user profile. Now, when we run this query right here, let me find it. The select all from left join movies on user ID. This is what we're getting back, right? This is our result where we've got, my user information. Now, one thing I want you to know is that whenever we are dealing with, or whenever we join something, if you have the same attribute the same attribute name. So in this case, ID, right? ID, my user has an ID and my movie has a column of ID. Whichever one we're joining on to, or whichever one is joining on to sort of the base one, the main one. So in this case, users is my main one and movies is joining on to users. Whichever one is joining on to the other adopts the movies.id. If the attribute name is already taken, it'll say movies.id. Right? Title, genre, director, those are not part of my user, but my created at and my updated at are. So it says movies.created at. Movies.updated at. And so just as a reminder, anytime you're dealing with information that is coming from a join, if they have the same column name, whichever one is joining on to the main one, that one adopts, the table name plus that to be able to differentiate between the two. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Cool. Okay. So we have quite a bit of information. We have this, we have this guy right here where I can, let's see, what does this give me? Same. Refresh. Ew, that looks awful. That's okay. I'm gonna get rid of that top part. Okay. So now if I wanted to say something like movies created by this user, right? Well, I have access to that information. And all I say is user.movies. This movies right here comes from this array that we created, or this list that we created. This is just a list of dictionaries, and we've used that. We've iterated through dictionaries or list of dictionaries a million times. So when I say for movie in user.movies, now because we're doing this movies, we can't just say like movies, right? This is just an attribute of my user. And so I iterate through and I can say .title, .genre, .director. But if I wanted to do like created at, you're going to need to put, movie.created at. Let's see. Refresh this. Cool. So now you can see that with this, we've got our information. And because we did the join, we're able to make this table here that allows us to see all the information there. But if I were to go back to this, show all users, but I click Charlie, show, we get Hangover 2. And kind of cheat and just go to 1. And then that's going to be Will. And Marley doesn't have anything because she hasn't created anything. She's not really pulling her weight. She's got none. So that's how we take a join. And show that. I think the code that's most important here when we're dealing with a join is this is how we join these tables together and then show that in one sort of place. We do our left join. Again, all of this is normal. We don't need to print results anymore. Take a class instance of the first one, which is what we've always done. But the thing that's different is we create this list called movies. We iterate through, and as we're iterating through results, now it's still iterating through this whole thing, right? But all we're doing is we're taking out the movie data, where the ID is the movies.id. The title is the movie's title. The genre is the movie genre. Right? It's all just picking these portions out. We're appending all that data to my list. And we pass it through. And then I misspoke because we redid it here. So I said that it needed to be the movie.id. I misspoke. We redid it right here in the created at and updated at. So what we're allowed to do is just say movie.id. Because that's what we passed in, right? Movies is just a list of values. It's just a list of dictionaries. The dictionary has these keys: ID, title, genre, director, created at, updated at. So you don't need to differentiate because it's already, we've already done that. We've already filtered that out. Okay. Any questions about what we did today? I know there's a lot. I told you that this week would be quite the week.
Yeah,
Isn't-
Yeah, I
today
think I
was
have to
pretty
go.
heavy. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch everything anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have to rewatch the whole lecture again
Yeah.
because a lot of concepts.
Yeah, this is a heavy week, and we'll make sure that we keep doing this. Like I said, the next 2 weeks are pretty light, and so I can keep kind of iterating through this and really proving this out for you guys so that we have a full understanding.
Yep.
Any other questions, my friends?
I think I'm good. Thing.
Cool.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful
Thank
night.
you, Will.
Of course. Have a wonderful
Thank
night.
you, Will.
Have a good night, all.
Take care. Have a great weekend.